here. How's it going? Another Thursday RCS Live is once again upon us, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Still quarantined here in Danbury, Connecticut. How's it going? It's Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering, as always here at RCS Live. Today we're going to talk about G Selector and its enterprise benefits. That's right, enterprise scheduling solutions and library maintenance and all of that good stuff. So we're going to talk about today switching between stations, markets, global versus station-specific attributes, multi-station scheduling, the conflict checker, advanced search, and the user activity as well. So lots of good stuff. Kai, how's it going? Thank you for checking in. What a great transition. As you know, we have our comments open here. So if you have any questions, anything that you want to ask in particular to your station, let me know. Good morning, V, as well. Some housekeeping as always. Beta users for G Selector 4.9.0, that brand new flex clock feature. We have past videos about that. Zeta 5.20.1, we are days away from the official release of that as well. The dark mode, server-side search. Once again, we have another video on the 5.20.1 in our RCS archive, which you can access at rcsworks.com/RCS-live. V, feel free to post that comment, that link on there too if you want to. So, and of course, as always, working from home photos, field technician services, our FTS team is on site with installs. That's kind of business as usual for us, and all of that good stuff. So now that housekeeping is out of the way, of course, questions, get them in. You can direct message us as well. By the way, we're going to look to maybe expand a little bit in the future. So if you have Twitch, for example, or YouTube or another source that you stream content, let us know. We got some cool stuff coming down the pipeline very shortly. We just want to make sure we get all of the, bases and the mediums covered. So that's there too. So let's dive right into this and let's talk about G Selector and let's talk about its enterprise setup. You might be familiar with Selector version 12 or RCS Selector version 15. And those were essentially individual databases, right? They were individual databases. When I went to go open up one, I only really had access to one. There were some tools that you could kind of cross-reference inside the utilities, but overall, it was a single database, right? If I had, let's say, one market with 10 stations, that would be 10 individual databases. That's not the case with G Selector. Remember, G Selector is a modern piece of software that has enterprise abilities. So first thing, the best way to describe this is here at the very top left, you see a station, right? These are all my stations that are part of this market. And if you want to keep it very simple for yourself, think about the market as its own server. Its own server has all the stations inside of it. The way I like to describe it is an island, right? We have one island and all the people or stations on the island can talk amongst themselves. They can go and share metadata or food, if you're following the metaphor, and they essentially are all part of one island. They're one island entity. And what G Selector has is we create that island, all the people or stations on that island. And if we have another island, we could essentially, again, following this metaphor, send a boat across to that other island to, of course, share some type of metadata or whatever it may be. Now, that boat, you can kind of think of it as a VPN access to the market, and that allows us to switch between different markets. As a setup in regards to installation for G Selector, again, we have that one centralized server, and we have all of the clients that reference that server live in real time. Again, not like old version 12, we have all those standalones everywhere, and not really like version 12 in the sense that we have one database, one folder that everybody accesses. This is truly one server. When I install G Selector, I am pointing to that server instance. When I point to that server instance, I am a user operating G Selector live in real time with everybody else too, by the way. So for example, you might notice there's a couple little indications here in the top right. These are notifications here. I have nothing here because I kind of disabled all of them because it's just me and my demo database. And usually I kind of tell people to kind of disable some of these because they're just pop-ups. And if you have, let's say, 4 PDs working inside one G Selector database, you might know that feature because it will pop up and say the user, Nate made a change to the environment. Nate added a song, V added a song, and all that good stuff. So that's one of those things where if you see that in here, it's a little drop down box, and there's one right here. You can see there's asset changes, there's scheduled events, stuff like that. So maybe you want to make sure the system is notified there, but you don't really need to say, I don't really care about if, V changes the asset. I don't really need to know that. But that's up here in the notification panel as well. Kai, I'm seeing your question here. Let me see. Yes. So Kai is referring to the VPN access. So we're talking about Zeta to Go, G Selector to Go, and all of that good stuff. Yes, usually most users need a VPN. To be honest, it's just some type of security. So Kai was asking, essentially, she's one of the users that she's not using, is that right? I'm not using a VPN. She's got a domain. So you got to have a cloud environment, and absolutely. So yeah, Kai was essentially saying in regards to Selector to Go and Zeta to Go and VPNs, do you have to use VPNs? The answer is no. We just need some type of security, right? The idea is that if we have no security and we keep that completely open, then we have users can just access, control your station and all the information. And of course, the world we live in 2021, that's just not really a viable option these days. So yes, if you have a non-VPN setup, there's probably some of the securities involved in there as well. We say VPN. It's just easier and the most common one of those scenarios too. So we're talking about G Selector Enterprise there. So let's first kick it off with stations, right? So we have the stations here. I can jump to RCS Alternative. It'll load up everything. And you can see this is kind of working linear inside the software. So I can go and operate an RCS Alternative and then jump right back to RCS Hot AC just like this. And you can see you're cycling between all these different stations. I will definitely tell you, this is one of the reasons why I switched personally when I was a program director from version 12 to G Selector. I was building a bunch of radio stations in my cluster. And what I did is I had kind of my music philosophy on that. And so what I did is essentially I would take kind of the fundamentals of the category groups and the rotations and the rules, and then I would essentially duplicate them across, which I'll show you in a second. And then I would use kind of the save as function as a base, a foundation for those stations to then further tweak based on the format itself, right? So that's a really, really cool thing. When you're inside this entire environment, you can cycle between different stations and work in there. So for me, it was very common to have somebody call in and say, hey, we're running a little early this hour. Can you grab a song? In which case, I would just go to my stations, pick the station, grab the song, switch back, continue working on whatever music log I was working on at the time. But you can see it's pretty flowing, just cycle back and forth, right? But what about markets? What about if I'm, let's say, an administrator, a VP of programming, and I have multiple markets that I need to access? Well, in that case, what you want to do is go to Tools here, and there's some server options, right? And there's two options here. There's kind of a database server, that's the local one, and then I have here the remote service host as well. I have a little kind of my old AWS machine, my VM that I had in the cloud. Yes, you can totally do that if you wanted to as well. The biggest thing you have to worry about when we really want to talk about networks and multiple users accessing, and this is a non-traditional setup. We're kind of referring to a 2021 cloud environment, multiple users working from home and all of that good stuff. What we're really talking about is bandwidth. That's the idea here, is bandwidth. So if you're thinking to yourself, hey, Nate, can I just put a G Selector server on a cloud instance and then run it on from there? And you totally can. The question becomes is how many users you have accessing how many stations with how many songs and what kind of work are you doing in there, right? That's the idea. And it's, of course, a case-by-case basis. You should be fine, but if you're in the rural areas of America where there's not a lot of internet or whatever it may be, that's obviously come into play as well, especially if, let's just say, you have a market with 10 stations, 50,000 plus assets, and you have 5 PDs in the software utilizing it. Yeah, you might want to check your bandwidth, make sure that you have enough bandwidth, everybody accessing that cloud back and forth. But you can see here, treat this AWS machine as market B, if you will, right? So I'm kind of in market A. We'll dub it the New York versus LA scenario, East Coast, West Coast. And so I'm in New York. This is my New York server. And I have access here to the AWS machine, which of course is going to be, let's just say, my West Coast instance with my West Coast database. Remember those islands, right? What this is that boat that connects the two islands. And it's very simple. It's just give a description of it, give an address of it. That address is an IP. If I could ping this IP address, I am good to go, right? So that's really, really cool as well. And you can have multiple of these if you wanted to. You can have a whole bunch of these instances here. And now the question becomes is a little tip for you. If I have the station up here and I can switch between databases, right? Sorry, switch between stations. Got to best practices here. If I want to switch between stations in the same market, that's fine. I also have multiple databases in here as well. So these are all local to my database. This is on my machine right here, right? But what if I want to jump to somewhere else, right? That different market. Well, we do have this connect to remote service host. It's a little shortcut here. You might not have noticed it because it's kind of there. And you can see it will relaunch G Selector. And after I relaunch G Selector, it's going to tell me, hey, which service host I want to connect to, right? That's that server host connection I was just showing you, the AWS machine. And I can say, all right, well, here's market A, here is market B. And then if I see market B, I can see the stations in market B. So again, these two instances here, treat these as markets, and these are the stations inside of them. I don't have that AWS running right now. That's why if I click that, it's going to sit there and look for the IP address. But yes, that's what I'll have essentially. There's market A, all of the stations inside of it. Then I can open this up accordingly in here as well. So you can see it's a pretty powerful tool in the sense that I can be an administrator and see multiple databases. I can review multiple databases. I can make change to multiple databases live in real time. I'm actually was just talking to a client yesterday because he wanted to have more centralized scheduling, right? That was the idea. And absolutely, we could take some stations, consolidate them into one somewhat VM cloud instance, as long as there's network access there. And again, when he wants to add a certain element, that element can be shared across multiple stations. Ooh, wait a second. Go back to that, Nate. I can take one song and add it to multiple stations. Yes, you absolutely can. So let's just see here. And so what you can do here is you can essentially, let's pick Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, right? I'm going to double click on this Beyonce, and essentially this is operating under RCS Hot AC, right? Let's talk about the differences between essentially global settings and station-specific settings. And I'm looking at your question here, Kai, here. Yeah, so Kai was talking about site rep with Zeta. So Kai's question was, she's a station that utilizes site rep as we broadcast from 5 different countries. All my sites can use G Selector. I've had to create a lot of VMs. Yes, you have. And there are ways you can centralize that, Kai. Again, the idea there is that you want to check your bandwidth and your network usage, the amount of users who are accessing it, and all that good stuff. So yes, if you do have multiple destinations, this one client I was talking to yesterday had a bunch of markets, and we're looking to kind of consolidate them into his top program directors and all of that good stuff. And we can absolutely do that too. You got questions, Kai, feel free to reach out to us or whomever. I think V put the support one in there too. I'm more than happy to help you out, give you some suggestions and all of that good stuff. It's why we're here for RCS Live. So we have global versus station-specific settings, right? So here, everything on the left, I kind of joke this like the 45th parallel here. This little line, you can kind of see it there. I know it might be tough with the Facebook Live here, but there's a line in the center, and it should be a very clear line for you, aside from the fact that we have station coding here on the top right-hand side. This is global settings. These are station-specific. In case you're wondering where that line is, like how do I see that line, just look at this history map, and let me ask you a question. All right, what is the history showing you here? This is showing the history of Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, in RCS Hot AC. Let me ask you a question. How many of these, how long has this song been spun on the alternative station? How can you know? Well, you would have to go somewhere else because this is RCS Hot AC and the history window, right? We're seeing the history for this one station. So we have that line right here in the center. Anything to the left, global. Anything to the right, station specific. Very simply put, this Beyonce song has a runtime of 405. If you have the one Beyonce song, If I Were a Boy, in your database across the board, and it all has the same runtime, it's not going to change, right? That's going to be a global setting. This song is in the database for everybody to see, and it's always going to be 4 minutes and 5 seconds. With that also being said, look at the participants aspect, right? Beyonce is always going to be a vocalist or artist if I were a boy, no matter what station it's going to be on. Same applies to, let's say, vocal, right? Beyonce is a vocal female. That's not going to change across the board, no matter what station she's in. However, let's look at something like, let's say, sound code or the mood, energy, tempos and stuff like that. Yeah, this might be a little bit different. On a top 40 station, this might be an R&B sound code. In a hip-hop station, this might be a pop sound code, if you think of it that way, right? There's no right or wrong way, but you can see how Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, is on, let's say, a hip-hop station versus a top 40 station. That song is treated a little bit differently in the process, right? Just by the tone of the station. Same rules apply for, let's say, 21 Pilots, which would be, let's say, a core song in alternative, but it's going to be kind of some top 40 extra love. But of course, 21 Pilots in a top 40 station is going to have some restrictions on how it's going to play just because of its alternative nature, if you know what I mean. So you can see here how we start having station-specific attributes, global attributes, that we're identifying how we want this song to schedule in our actual log itself. If we want to have a song that is similar in nature, right? Similar in nature. This Beyonce song could be played on a bunch of formats. What we have here is the Multistation Tab. See that here? Multistation Tab. And what we're looking at here is all of the stations in our one island or database, if it's active or inactive on that station, and where the attributes are coming from and what category, the local category it's going to be in. So just very simply put, if I want to take Beyonce, I want to add it to the test blank station, I'll just activate it. Where do I want to keep the attributes from, if any, right? And let's say I want to keep it from RCS Hot AC because I want to grab some of those vocal, female, all that good stuff. I'm taking all the attributes from that station, and I don't have to copy it over. I can keep that blank. And then what category inside test blank are we going to look at here? Where it's going to land? So we'll just say A1 for right now, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm taking Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, from RCS Hot AC. I am activating on all these stations of my choosing. Again, I can make this activate for everybody if I wanted to. Copy attributes for everybody if I wanted to. And put in the local category. Again, this category is not RCS Hot AC. The category is respecting from that of RCS Alternative, Classic Rock, and the test blank there. So you can see that. And the idea is that you have similar sounding formats. Think of those classic rock stations where you have kind of a classic rocker, a classic hits, and maybe a modern day alternative. There's a lot of songs that cross over there that you could essentially apply global settings to, and then you can copy them to multiple stations so that when they schedule, they're going to respect some of those same settings. And just in case you're wondering, where can I define those settings, right? Because you notice in mine, if I jump back to the main here, I've saved that. That's fine. I do have some attributes here that are actually global, like content and theme and stuff like that. Usually by default, when we convert your databases, shout out to Adrian over in support. When we convert your databases, we have kind of a workflow of what we think is best for the majority of users. So for example, like vocal, male, female, that's kind of a global attribute, right? But something like content, that's a very loose term and depending on how you interpret that. So that might be a station-specific setting. Again, global here, station-specific here. And I can go to my setup. I can go to my setup, station, features, attributes, setup, station, features, attributes. Here's where you can define global versus station specific. You see that? So just be aware, if you are going to, you watch this video and you're like, this is so great, I want to have my own station attributes. Just be aware, you are telling G Selector that if I am a vocal female, we'll just use that for example. If I'm a vocal female, that is a global attribute. If I switch to station, I don't have a station vocal attribute created for Beyonce. That's a global attribute. So I have to reassign everything if you switch from global to station, just so you know. I would take a backup first, make your changes. It's pretty easy though, because all you have to do is highlight the attributes beforehand, go to the multi-song changer, isolate them, and you're totally fine. So it really takes a couple seconds. I just want to make sure that you know for scheduling and rules and goals purposes that if you do make the switch after the fact, that you're going to have to want to fix all of those attributes. And by the way, since we're here, don't forget song identification on the bottom left-hand side. I talked about this last week in a lot of videos. This is a way for essentially G Selector. If it's internal ID, G Selector will treat, let's say, Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, the extended intro and the regular version, it will treat it the same, right? If I switch to artist, so I jumped ahead of myself here. Internal ID is going to treat both of those individually. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Internal ID, if I have Beyonce and a Beyonce, If I Were a Boy extended version, internal ID will treat both of those individually, and they'll be the same individual scheduling, individual history, individual analysis. If I switch to artist and title, that is where I combine the asset into one. So again, Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, regular version, extended intro version. With artist and title, we know that we see that's the same Beyonce, If I Were a Boy, If I Were a Boy. The version is where we see extended intro, right? We want to make sure because we're matching on artist and title. If I Were a Boy versus I Were a Boy, parentheses, extended version, that's a different title, right? So we use the version field to identify what is what. So song identification, internal ID, separate, artist and title, back to one. That's in there too. And by the way, all of these are the same across the board. So for example, if I go back to a library and I go, let's say, to my multi-song changer, you can see here, don't forget to check your count, what songs you have highlighted. I have 153. That's from my library. You can see here again, there's that line, right? That line that I showed you. So global settings, station-specific settings, as well as the multi-station tab here. So if you're building a database from scratch, I might go in here, take all the assets, copy them over one by one using attributes from the station A and putting them in other categories as well. That is in here for you too. And of course, don't forget we have things like clocks, for example, because we have a single database, a single island with everybody inside of it. We have certain things like this: copy clocks to other stations. You can see here, we copy the clocks, we identify the stations, and we also say what we want to copy over as well. Remember, in this window, what is this? This is a what? This is a category group. Remember, not a category, a category group. The way you can identify that is if I am a classic hit station and I want to play in this position, 1970s, but I want to have a power, secondary, and filler categories inside that 1970s category group, I can do that and rotate them accordingly versus individual category groups with their own categories. Really your choice. But the idea there is that I'm calling for a category group, which means if I copy this clock to another station, I will create the category group. I will not create the category. So I will essentially identify the category group, but I will not put any songs in that category to schedule. So you will have to fix that. As always, you can get your questions in. I'm looking at Kai's here and a couple other ones here too. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm in here answering them. So again, we can copy over to copy clocks. We can also go to the goals tab and brand new, I believe, to 480, if I'm not mistaken. We have the priority list, and we now have the same copy priorities to other stations from this window here. Again, working smarter, not harder. You're building radio stations, you're moving stuff around, you're copying things. Just do this. It's just a lot easier. You know, again, work smarter, not harder. I'm a big believer in that. And there's some things too, like for example, if I have an asset, here's an example for you. I have a new Sunday morning PSA show. I can take a clock that is a 60-minute clock with that one asset inside of it. I can take the asset, distribute it to all stations inside my market. I can then take the clock, copy it to all markets, and I can take a priority list as well and copy that to all markets if I wanted to that, right? So you can see how we're working smarter, not harder in that type of scenario, right? And of course, let's move on as we're going down. Remember, our eyes here utilizing G Selector, they're all here in the top right corner, top left corner. And that's because we want to save real estate and screen space, workspace, all that good stuff. So, I mean, my eye, visually speaking, is looking here to the top left to right, then the sub tabs below that, and the sub tabs below that. So visually, I'm goals, priorities, definition. If I go to my scheduler here, I click on the scheduler. That's the main tab. And then I have sub tabs, current station, multi-station, copy schedule, audit trail, right? Again, you can see all my stuff here. Yeah, ignore the ones. I was doing a test with somebody, and I threw in a joke empty scheduled position, and I forgot to take it out there. But you will not see any of these ones. This is me showing how to purposely do something inaccurate. So, and I have here my multi-station. So scheduler, multi-station. I have the date range here. This row should look kind of the same, right? The bottom here is what changes. So when I want to schedule multiple stations at one single time, I go to the scheduler, multi-station, pick my date range. Again, these three cells should all look the same to you. Nothing's changing there. That's identical. See? Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I have the same settings both in here as well. And so then I have over here, I have my actual stations to choose from. So if I am, let's say, that format captain, if you will, or whatever it may be, I can take all my stations and schedule them once and for X number of times and then call it a day if I wanted to. There's actually a really cool feature that I selfishly helped build, and that is the conflict checker here. And this is actually really, really cool. If you have a lot of stations in your market, and again, going back to that VM cloud instance, this is kind of where programming is going. Again, networking is kind of really preventing us from getting there right this exact second. We do have a conflict checker. So let's just say you have all of your stations, and let's use the extreme example here. If you have all 10, 20 of your stations, and you have a song like Mr. Brightside that's on the alternative station, but also the Hot AC station. That's one of those songs that kind of teeters back and forth. Well, I want to know about when that song plays. So we have the conflict checker here. And very simply put, it's going to look at this date range. It's going to do a conflict checker at the very end. And you can do it right now isolated afterwards. You can find it, fix interactively, and you have this window here. There are three options to the conflict checker. First, the settings, right? Let's talk about that. If you want to know when a song overlaps, if you want to know when it's in the same hour, if you want to know it's in the adjacent hour or a custom time window, think of this as same hour is like yesterday, same hour. And then adjacent hour is kind of like the yesterday rule. And the custom time window is almost like the play window, if you think of those three different ways. So if I do the custom time, I put an hour, and let's just say an hour and 30 minutes, we'll just say. That means that if I play Mr. Brightside on station A at noon, anytime that song plays from noon until 1:30, I want to know about it, which then begs the question, how do you want to know about it? What do you want to do about this? I can fix this, and that's going to allow G Selector to automatically go in and essentially allow, based on your stations, who gets priority and who gets replaced. Very simply put, the fix feature here goes back to your setup, goes back to, is it your day parts again? Yes. So setup, day parts, definition. That's where this has here. You're essentially, stations. Sorry, I'm combining my two things over here. That's going to be your tools. That's going to be administration here. It's actually this order here. This order is how essentially you want to do it. You control that, if I'm not mistaken, right here. Super in the weeds, which is great. This is why we do this. If you ever want to know, based on, what does G Selector consider your primary station versus your secondary stations, or what order it shows up in, it's here in this window. Tools, administration. I go to security, organizations, and you can see there's an order here with an up-down arrow, increase station importance or decrease station importance. For the most part, you're not going to worry too much about this because you're doing individual stations and scheduling. The only really way it comes into play, again, is the scheduler, the multi-station scheduling, and all of that good stuff, the conflict checker, right? Because then we're saying if I'm fixing this, I want my primary station to always be the primary, the secondary always be the secondary, and G Selector will go in here and fix that song for you automatically on the secondary station. Whereas the fix interactively option allows you to go in and say, oh, this one popped up. We got a conflict. I can go in and pick which one I want to replace it with and how, right? The fix is automatic. G selector defines the schedule and the score. Fix interactively. I pick the song. And of course, the third option here we have is it will display it here, which is more of, I kind of call it a good to know type of setting, right? When you run this conflict checker in the find, it will show you all the conflict checking here. Whereas also there's an option after you do that to a file and print. So if you need a report, you run the find, see everything, file print. Then I have a hard copy, a PDF of all of those settings. The idea is we had a music director APD who wanted this setting, right? And they wanted to have, I want to know off the bat, let me know what's going on and I'll call it a day. Or I'm too busy. So I'm going to go and schedule it, look at the conflicts, print them out, and hand them to an intern to have them or a music assistant to go and essentially fix these issues. Or I can have G Selector do it automatically, or I can fix them individually at that time. So Jamie, right? Looking good? So yeah, you can see there, this is definitely one of those things where it's pretty cool feature over there as well. And again, that's the multi-station schedule. We could, of course, copy schedules as well across different stations if you wanted to. There's some interesting stuff there in regards to Christmas and workflows, and we can really get into the weeds there. So just know that this is here to copy schedule if you want to do that as well. Let's see here. So we covered, again, questions, all that good stuff. Let me know. Thank you for checking in, Jamie. Let's see here. We did go with my checklist. Conflict Checker, advanced search. Okay, advanced search, right? So we have a special function here, library and browse. You might have noticed this advanced search function here, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, I've seen it, but I don't really play with that often because why? I'm working in RCS Hot AC. And again, if you were working on an individual station, I can totally see why you don't really have to utilize the advanced search. Everything is here for you, right in front of you for RCS Hot AC. But what if, let's say you were like me, and I was the PD of 4 radio stations or 3 stations? So what you can do here is I can go here to the advanced search, and I can go and start looking at my database as a whole, right? Think of an aerial view of that island. I can see all of the island, everything that's going on here. So I can add a plus, right? And I can search for show me all the songs that are active in RCS Hot AC. Make a note, by the way, of this fetch right here, number of songs at a time. And I can search for this, and it's going to be essentially, okay, all of the songs that are in RCS Hot AC that are active and true are going to be in here. So you can see these are all the blue circles. Blue is active. Blue circle is active. And if I change this to false, right, I am saying search for all of the attributes that are active but are false, so not active in RCS Hot AC. And you can see here, boom, there's all the inactive songs. And you can see the orange square for inactive that's here. Again, notice the fetch here, number of songs I'm fetching. Also look down here, your field criteria. So if you have a too small window here, I'll make this just 10 to show you what I mean. You'll see there's a red outline. My cursor's down here at the bottom. 450 songs have not yet been loaded because I am defining the fetch here as 10. I'll change this back to 5,000 and search for that. Obviously, if I change that to like 50,000 and I have 50,000 songs in my library, yeah, you're going to want to give that a couple seconds so it properly goes and loads up, right? Because you're telling G Selector, show me all the elements that are here that have the settings, but 50,000 songs of them. And of course, we could combine this into multiple workflows. I'm a big proponent personally of, again, when I copy elements over or I utilize certain things, I either use the browse list to isolate or I use the advanced search because you can really get some really cool things like show me all the songs that are active in RCS Hot AC, but then show me, or maybe I'll do it a different way, right? I'll take show me all the songs that are not active for Christmas, or maybe I'll do this Christmas example for you, right? I have a Christmas that all my music is inactive, waiting for me to activate it back again for the new year, right? We might have gone and said, take all the Christmas songs, deactivate them right now, and then November, reactivate them. So you can sit there and say like, hey, show me all the songs that are active on the Christmas station that are in, let's say, the category that equals, A, and then also show me, I don't know, something like, a theme or something. I can't think of anything on top of my head, so I'll just remove that one for right now. Oop, did all 3. So again, active true for the Christmas station, and we'll do category group, and we equals A. We'll search for this, and you can see whatever that was in there will pop up as well if I had any music actually in there. But you can see you have essentially these categories here, as well as the categories in the true active. So if you want to take certain elements and bring it over, bring it back, you can do that. If you also just want to see essentially what's going on in your database overall, show me essentially all stations, or show me, not songs that are on RCS Hot AC. I can see all that here. This is important when you have a Zeta environment, because obviously if we have a certain media ID or something, we want to make sure we acknowledge every song inside the database, right? No matter where it is, we want to know where it's located inside the database. So all that makes sense. Any questions for advanced search? I know that was kind of vague, and that's because it really is a compounded workflow of what you need to look at. But the key thing there is that you're looking at the entire database. You're not just searching an RCS Hot AC. Oh, and by the way, this always got me when I was a brand new G Selector user. How do you close out of the advanced search? There is a black X right here. See that black X? So again, that's going to return me back to the main screen. Click on advanced search. That opens the new window here, and I have that black X right here. Makes sense? Advanced search, that black X, boom, we're good to go. And let's wrap this up finally with a what if, again, enterprise software. I'm an administrator. Something happened. A user went and added a song, and I want to know why, where, how, all of that good stuff. G Selector does have, under tools, we have a user activity. Don't know if you know about this. It's pretty cool. So essentially, it's just that. It's a report section that gives you a lot of information. And you might see this and go, whoa, that's a lot of information. And I totally get it, totally understand. If you're an administrator, you kind of know what you're looking for, right? So I'm creating control events here over in Zeta. I log in, I log out. When you know what you're looking for, you can see this is the section as in what's the user that's doing it, what's the operation. I've had troubleshooting things where people have gone on unscheduled logs accidentally and they want to know who did it. Well, I would essentially say, okay, well, you can see here, I logged out as administrator and logged back in as administrator right there at 1:21 at 11:13 a.m., right? That's when I switched between different markets. If I did that and then I scheduled, you'll see that the user administration had scheduled a log. Or in this case, for example, I did one for you. In the insert event, I went ahead and added song I Like Me Better. At essentially 1:21 at 10:14 a.m., I added this song I Like Me Better. If I want to see more specific, down here you'll see there's a little hidden kind of filter, and there's an edit filter on the bottom right-hand side. I can click this, and you can see there's a little plus there. Insert or use the add key when I add a new condition to the group. And I can sit there and say, hey, show me a value for maybe instead of asset GUID, show me the, the info, and it was I like, right? I think if I apply this, we should see this filter go down and see that over there too. So you can see there's some filter options here as well. You can sort also by timestamp, section, operation, type. So usually what I'll do is I'll try to go something like info first, identifying what's going on here. What am I doing? Am I looking to insert an event? Did somebody delete something? Did somebody schedule something? And that will give you an idea of where I am here inside the program itself. And again, you can see here the user administrator added that insert event, song I Like Me Better at that time. These GUID source and asset GUIDs were all kind of just connected. It's a G Selector Zeta language, if you will. So again, really cool stuff. So to summarize, as I give you last minute for questions here, any questions, let me know. You can always direct message me as well here on the Facebook page. We answer all these questions after the fact. So we talked about essentially the enterprise modern piece of G Selector software. Stations, I can switch between all these stations, treat it like an island. If I want to have, let's say, another island, I need to get something like a boat to connect the two. That's tools and servers, and all it is remote service hosts. And all we need is a description. That's on you. It could be Nate's Station. It could be Nate's Market. It could be whatever you want. Doesn't care. The address is important, and that's the IP address of the second market. I can toggle between each station. I can also toggle between markets by up here, File, Connect to Remote Service Host. That's in there. We talked about global versus station settings. Here on the left-hand side, these are global. Here on the right-hand side, these are station-specific. We have the Multistation tab to rotate things all the way through as well if you want to do that. And of course, those are also in the multi-song changer. Same exact thing applies there, just with multiple songs or multiple links. And if you need to change those for a reason, setup, station, features, and then attributes. So setup, station, features, attributes, global or station specific. I think you'll find that when we convert this, it will be where you want it to be. If you want to change it, we can definitely do that. But I think you'll find that during the conversion process, we cater this this area to what your station dictates and what you're doing. Is there one PD for everybody? Is there 5 PDs for one station? That type of ordeal. And then from there, we had the multi-station scheduling. Don't forget, before I forget, the copying things over. Like, for example, goals, priority list. There's the copy priority to other stations. Same thing in the clocks. Then, of course, we have the schedule with the copy schedule or multi-station scheduling and the conflict checker. That's very cool. If you don't know what the conflict checker is, guess what? Hit F1, and you'll see here, boom, no matter where we are, the dynamic help guide pops up. If you scroll down here, you will see the conflict checker somewhere down here as I keep on scrolling. So that will be in there too for you, right? So if you ever are curious how it works, F1 is your friend, right? F1 is your friend. We did finally the advanced search, library, advanced search. You can go to town with this. Just know you can close it with this X right here. See a little X. And then finally, we covered the tools and user activity, where we essentially go and talk about, all the ways you can identify running reports on that enterprise piece of software too. Kai, thank you so much. Questions are always appreciated. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week as well. Jamie, Henrik, as always. And other questions, let me know. We are back again next week for Zeta Zcast versus site replication. That's going to be a great one. Don't forget rcsworks.com, the blog on the top right. That's going to give you all a breakdown of all of our past videos with a full description, by the way, of what the video covers. The idea is that if you're looking for a certain topic, I want you to go to the blog section, read on, see the header, see if it pertains to you, read some of the paragraphs. Each paragraph is listed out by what topic we're covering in that video, and then going from there. So again, I want to make it quick and easy for you to search some of these to find some videos and helpful hints. There's the Facebook page, there's the archive, there's all of that good stuff as well. Don't forget beta users. We're still looking for beta users as well. And I will see you next Thursday. Last call for questions. We're good. I'll see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's RCS Live. I am Nate. Have a fantastic week. Be safe and all of that good stuff. Wear a mask. Thanks, everybody. Bye.